much.
Thanks, gentlemen. And you just heard Phillies Brewers by a couple of loyal NL Central fans, and we're joined again by Paul Sport. And Paul, you're talking Tigers. I know you're a Florida guy, or a Texas guy, excuse
Correct.
me. I thought maybe we'd get some Texas Ranger homer takes tonight.
No, I grew up in the greater Detroit area, so I've been loyal to my Michigan teams as far as pros go, but Texas Longhorns when it comes to college, that's my alma mater. Stay very familiar with the Rangers and Astros, more so the Rangers because the Astros you can only get on TV here in Texas if you have one specific provider. That's it. And it's really annoying to have something like that where it's like if you're not on this provider, you don't get them. So I watch plenty of Rangers games. I'm definitely familiar with them, but they actually broke my heart a few years ago when in the playoffs, I went up there to watch the Tigers play them, and Nelson Cruz absolutely decimated the Tigers en route to the World Series there, which he eventually cost them. So I guess there was some comeuppance there for Nelson Cruz obliterating the Tigers, but no real hate for the Rangers or Astros for that matter. I don't mind either Texas team. I follow them both pretty closely.
Yeah, we of course are not shortage of hate for the Astros in what's been a busy MLB offseason, and what unfortunately has been a bit of a down stretch here as the world struggles with this pandemic. But of course, MLB Bot Ball is here trying to bring baseball back again virtually as much as we can. And Paul, we know you're a big MLB The Show guy, and so this is somewhat native to you as we get ready for the Yankees that are off to an incredible start, 13-5 against the Ranger team that you talked about it is in the midst of a little bit of a rebuild and made some big moves this offseason with some of the pitching that they acquired.
Yeah, they really did. I think they had a quietly strong offseason. I think this Texas team, particularly if we do get any sort of season that is, a shortened half season or whatever, I think they have a chance to make some noise. They've already got a decent offensive foundation with the likes of Chu, Gallo, Willie Calhoun, Danny Santana, even some guys on the fringes who could be more like a Rougned Odor and Elvis Andrus. I'm a big Nick Solak guy, but that pitching, they run a 1-5 that is as strong as just about any out there. Obviously, the top of the scale are ahead of them. There's a handful of teams, but with Kluber, Minor, Lynn, Gibson, and Lyles, every single day they run out somebody who can give them 6 strong innings, especially if Kluber's back to anything what he was like before last year. And last year was such an anomaly with regards to starting poorly and then having his arm broken and never being able to return from that to really kind of smooth out those first bad 7 starts to know if that was the guy that he was going to be. So I think that this Texas rotation is actually quite solid. If they get anything out of the bullpen, they've got a useful crew.
And there's a lot of people that think the American League would have been a done deal. I mean, we've talked about the Yankees and obviously the perennial favorites in the American League. Houston, despite all the drama and the change at manager, is bringing back pretty much the same team minus Garrett Cole. The Minnesota Twins, of course, all they did is go out and retool this offseason. But it's baseball, and every year we see some teams sneak in. We see some teams do some dangerous things to whether it be win a division or get the wild card. And you talked about it, but this Texas pitching staff is top to bottom pretty good. I mean, now they're taking some bets on some guys. Corey Kluber really hasn't been the same since we saw him melt down against this Yankee team that the Rangers will face tonight back in the 2018 playoffs. If you remember the Yankees advancing as a wild card, the big upset, everyone thought that was going to be Kluber and Cleveland's year under Terry Francona. Nonetheless, he comes over in a trade. We're going to get to see Kyle Gibson tonight signed as a free agent, Jordan Lyles signed as a free agent, and of course, Mike Minor and Lance Lynn. And me as a big fantasy guy, I've had many a Sunday night or Sunday ruined by a Lance Lynn disappointing start. So a little bit of bias on my Lance Lynn takes.
No, I can understand that. It's one of those guys where you kind of look up at his numbers at the end, particularly last year, and you're like, wow, he was so good. And, he's had a lot of good work over his career, but he feels, it's one of those guys who almost feels worse than he is until you actually step back and look at the composite of what he's been able to do as a workhorse guy. And he leans so heavily on the fastball, Lynn does, that it's just kind of one of those guys who flies under the radar a little bit. And I think he's really been, he's turned a corner since he was with these Yankees that he's going to see today, that his Rangers are going to face today, when his skills really took a turn, and he's carried that through. Had a great year last year. Minor, of course, had that turnaround season with KC out of the bullpen. The Rangers scoop him up, decided to put him back in the rotation. He's been great. Kyle Gibson was on his way to a breakout season before a bout of ulcerative colitis actually derailed him. And I'm interested to see if maybe he can rebound there. And of course, like we said, Kluber trying to rebound as well. I think Jordan Lyles, as a 5, you really don't need much out of him. So if he's anything under a 4.5, 4.75 ERA, that's useful.
And of course, we've spent some time previewing this Texas Rangers team, but the team they're going to face tonight doesn't need much of an intro. Of course, I'm talking about the New York Yankees, off to a 13-5 start, first place in the AL East in this early MLB bot ball campaign. And the Yankees been no shortage of hitting. The rotation's been a bit skeptical, and we expected that. We're going to get to see J.A. Happ on the mound, 1-2 so far this season, north of a 5 ERA.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a guy that they really want more out of, and the expectations are there for some sort of rebound from Happ. So far, not seeing it. I'm not sure that they would see it in real life if and when we start back up as well. 37. Age 37 now. Another guy kind of similar to the Lance Lynn thing, where he really leans on a fastball, but he doesn't have great velocity. And coming from the left side there, he's had a few strikeout seasons that spiked up, dipped back down last year, had a major home run issue. Definitely didn't like the way the home run ball worked for him last year. I think Happ is going to be somebody who is going to play more in that 4-5 role at best. I'm not sure that they should have expectations of him getting much better than what we've seen this year. The 5 ERA, 128 whip, right in line with what he did last year. Maybe he scales that ERA down below 5, but I think this is kind of the expectation that we should have for J. Happ for the duration of his career, which is probably only going to be this year and maybe another year or two beyond that.
As we get ready for Yankees Rangers, of course, Major League Baseball has been in the news the last few days. It sounds like Rob Manfred and team are looking to be somewhat trailblazers as they look to start the season sooner rather than later. Hopefully, we're all big baseball nuts here on MLB Bot Ball. And we've heard a few different provisions. We've heard the Phoenix, Arizona, Scottsdale model. We know that the density of spring training stadiums could allow for baseball to begin on time. We heard today, breaking news, that MLB is willing to be some of the first to take the antibodies to be able to bring baseball back to America. Paul, your thoughts. You're a baseball nut. Your career thrives on baseball being back. Are you okay with us bringing this thing back without real fans in attendance?
No, not really. And I hate to be pessimistic because I really want baseball back. As you mentioned, it is my life.